This video is about deploying VPC to AWS with NAT Gateway using Azure DevOps pipelines. So we have this pipeline here. I'm going to run this. And while it's working, let's go over the pipeline. And in this pipeline, we're using a hosted agent on AWS. And it's a baked agent just with the Azure DevOps agent. So the build agent is just a Linux machine with the Azure DevOps agent. And that's why we're using those scripts to prepare the instance to do the build. Okay, so first we're going to download and install AWS CLI. Then we're going to do AWS configure. And then we're going to deploy AWS cloudformation deploy. This approach we can use ephemeral build agent. Okay, so as you can verify here, we're using variables, okay, to configure the pipeline. And all the variables here are changeable except for this template file, as you can see, variable that is hard-coded with the path of the file, the YAML file that is committed to the Git repo. Okay, so the variables are here, and what's good about this is you can reuse the template, meaning if you deploy this to this region and you want to change now to a different region, you just change this and deploy. And then you can reuse the same pipeline for multiple regions, or you can add more subnet or more VPCs by using a different stack name. But for this specific scenario that we're going to deploy VPC with network and subnets, so we don't want an overlapping IP addresses or overlapping networks. So this is something you need to know if you're reusing the same template, because you're probably going to want to have a different IP addresses, different networks. So later on, you can do VPC peering. Okay, so let's check the stack. Stack is complete. Okay, now let's check the VPC. So this is the VPC that is already, it's the default VPC that comes with the AWS account. We'll do a refresh. And here is the VPC we just created. Let's go over the details. As you can see, this side here is /16, and this is the network. Resource map, this is the name of the VPC. And in this case, we have 4 subnets, 2 in each availability zone. Okay, so we have 1 public, 1 private. So as you can see, the difference here is that the public goes to the public route, and that goes to the NAT Gateway. The private is going to the private route and then goes to the NAT Gateway. So what's the difference here? So in the public, each instance that is started is going to get an IP address, an elastic IP address dedicated to the instance, and that instance can go online, basically go to the internet using the Internet Gateway. And on the private, it doesn't need elastic IP, it just needs its private IP, and it goes online to the internet via the NAT Gateway. And you can have multiple private IP addresses that goes to the internet, or basically using one IP address, the NAT Gateway, which is the NAT Overload. Okay, so let's check the subnets here. We do refresh, and we have, let's check the public, and the details here are, you can see the CIDR. This one is using /22 and have 1018 available IP addresses. And here, auto-assigned public IP address is set to yes. Okay, so now every instance that will be launched in this specific subnet will get an ElasticIP. On the private subnet, it's also using /22, but here we have 1019 IP addresses, and here the auto-assign is set to no, because we don't need elastic IP address for the private, because we're going to use the NAT Gateway. Okay, so now let's do a demo. We're going to launch an instance in the public. So we're going to call this EC2 public. We're going to use Debian here. Network, we're going to choose the VPC with the NAT Gateway. And here, because it's public, we're going to use public. Let's choose the public A. And as you can see, the auto-assigned public IP is enabled. Okay. Security group, we're going to do the default. And here we're going to just select spot, just because this is a video. And if you're using ephemeral resources, then you can also use spot. And what we want to change is the user data. And we're going to add this script that will basically allow user and password login. Okay, so you don't want to do this in production on any other scenario, but for this video, we're going to do login. So let's launch the instance. We do without a pair. Okay, and now let's do the second one. This one is the private. We do Debian. And we're going to change the network to the VPC. And we're going to do private A now. And as you can see, auto-assign disabled. This is automatically configured from the template, the CloudFormation template. Okay, we use the same settings. Okay, we're going to use spot here also. And for the login, we're going to do user and password. Okay, again, you don't do this for production. And okay, so now let's do a refresh, and we have those two machines. So let's first connect to the public one. We're going to do the connect via the console. Okay. This is the username. This is the password. Okay, logged in. Now let's do an IP route. And we have the default route. This one, this is the router, the IP address of the router within the subnet. Okay, let's do the address. So the address is this one. This is the specific address from the pool of the subnet for this specific public instance. Okay, now let's try to go to the internet with this. Okay, and you can see it's working. Now let's find out which IP we're using, okay, on the public internet. Okay, and this is the IP. Okay, now let's check the instance, the public, and you can see this is the public IP address, a dedicated public IP address for this instance because it's in the public subnet. Okay, so let's connect to the second machine. Again, we're going to do serial console. Okay, logged in. Now we're going to do IP route, and you can see the default route. Now let's do the IP. This is the IP, again, private. Now let's check if we have internet connection. And we do have internet connection. Now let's check which IP address are we using here. And we're using this IP address. Okay. Now let's go to the VPC resource map, and we're going to click on here for the NAT Gateway. And as you can see, this IP address, right, the primary public IP address is this one. So every instance that have the private IP in the private subnet goes through the NAT Gateway. So they're all using the same IP. Okay, so this is the difference in the scenario of the public subnet and the private subnet, and you can use it per your application and requirements.